Hey, it's James Lynch, and this is my stock report for UFC Shanghai, taking a look at the biggest winners and losers from the event. And in the case of this week's edition, the thumbnail does give it away. Johnny Walker, biggest stock riser on this card, no questions asked. Going into enemy territory, plus 300 underdog, coming off back-to-back stoppage losses against guys that don't have a lot of knockout power in Magomed Ankalaev and Volkan Ozdemir, and he gets the win. TKO finish in the second round, getting that nice leg kick. Definitely hurt Zhang there, and then went for the kill. Really big win here for Johnny Walker, because you got to remember here, if Walker loses this fight, he might have been cut. We've seen the UFC get rid of some, older fighters, some fighters that have been in the promotion for a little bit of a while. I know Walker's 33, but sort of what I mean is he's been in the UFC roster for a little bit here. I could see them cutting ties if he got finished again. And pretty much everyone I saw going into this fight said that Zhang was going to win by first round knockout. So big win there for Walker, kind of rejuvenates his career. Can he go on like a Dominic Reyes type run, with this win? I think it's possible. That was a very good victory here for Johnny Walker. Like I said, plus 300 underdog, gets it done. Easily the biggest stock riser on this card, not only for him keeping his job, but you look at light heavyweight, win over this for Zhang, he gets another win or two. He could be right where Dominic Reyes is right now in short order. So big win there for Johnny Walker in the main event. Okay, second biggest stock riser on this card. For me, we're going to go down on the card a little bit. Normally I like sticking with, fighters on the main card, but it's got to be Charles Johnson. And if you watch my preview show, I did like Johnson in this spot here, plus 215 underdog. First round, Kavanaugh looked good. Second round, Johnson was able to sort of tag him a little bit here and there and ends up getting the finish here. So he hands Kavanaugh his first loss. Again, Johnson going into enemy territory and getting the job done here. And Charles Johnson is a guy who I think is criminally underrated in the division. And with him being a flyweight fighter, we got to look at the context of this as well. He's got a knockout win over Joshua Van, who's going to be fighting for the title next. That is holding a lot of weight right now with this win, because now Johnson back on the winning track. A veteran who's been in there for a while. He's fought some of the best opponents in there. And, again, he's now won, if my math's correct here, 5 of his last 6. This is a big win with him taking out Kavanaugh here, especially with the fact that, like we've seen in flyweight, like in the past with Steve Erceg and other fighters, where you can get some big opportunities just depending on how, the timing of your wins. And I think with this win for Charles Johnson, huge for him in his career. And again, taking out a prospect that he was supposed to lose to, I think very, very, very impressive there. So Charles Johnson, second biggest stock riser, because again, with flyweight, you never know. You get a couple wins here and there. Look at Josh Van, again, going to be fighting for the title next. He didn't lose to Johnson that long ago. So this is what I'm saying. Like, a win at flyweight really carries a lot of weight because it's such a wide open division. So Charles Johnson, second biggest stock riser on this card, in my opinion, no questions asked. And third biggest stock riser, I don't think he had a ton of stock going into this, but it's just the fact that he did kind of the opposite of what the people thought was going to happen. And that's Kyle Daukaus. So Daukaus clawing his way back to the UFC. Remember, had a first stint a few years back, lost a few in the UFC, got released, won a couple fights, and then gets signed on short notice. And he knocks out Michel Pereira. Like, if he would have won a decision, fair enough. But to knock out Michel Pereira, that is a huge win for him here. Kyle Daukaus, not only, he would have kept his job had he lost this fight too, but I just think the fact that he is, going out there and knocking out a guy like Pereira, and he was such a big underdog in this fight, coming in at plus 200. Very, very good win there for Kyle Daukaus. So his stock skyrockets. He's now got a win over a guy who's been hovering around the rankings, who was ranked at one point. Daukaus is in a very good position with getting this win, and looked like he didn't take much damage. I'm assuming he'll get to fight probably again this year. Kyle Daukaus, third biggest stock riser on this card. And I'll give an honorable mention on this card too. And again, there's a couple different ways we could go with this, but I'm going to give one to Sergey Pavlovich. Look, Waldo's a tough outing. Waldo was on a nice win streak heading into this fight. He had won, 5 in a row. And for, Pavlovich to get the victory, would have been nice to see a finish, but I thought he put out a solid outing here. And at heavyweight, you never know now, as Tom Aspinall's kind of going through his opponents here, Pavlovich could be, a fight or two away from getting that rematch against Tom Aspinall. I mean, and yes, I am picking Tom Aspinall over Cyril Gahn. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. I think Pavlovich, remember that disappointing loss to Volkov, and then since then, win over Rosenstruik, win over Acosta. Very good win there for Sergey Pavlovich. He's the third biggest, well, not third biggest, he's the honorable mention stock riser on this card. Let me know in the comments your 3 biggest stock risers. Would love to hear from you there. Okay, let's get to the stock droppers. A couple different ways you can go with this one, but to me, I'm looking a lot at this at context, and the context of this card is, you got to think of it this way. This card was basically built around Zhang, right? So, 27 years old, coming off a couple knockout wins. The UFC for years has been trying to find a huge Asian fighter star that they can kind of market and promote. And this card was basically made around him, and he came up short. And listen, I thought he won the first round. I think there could have been a little bit more urgency on trying to finish Walker in that first round, and it didn't end up happening here. To me, this was a missed opportunity for Zhang, because you think if he would have beat Johnny Walker, he's probably getting in that upper echelon of opponents, and who knows where he's going to go from there. To me, this was such a missed opportunity. Had lots of notice for this fight. Remember, they pulled Johnny Walker from the fight with Murzakanov to take this fight. I know they were, and I'm not talking about the first fight. I'm talking about, it looked like they were going to reschedule the fight with Murzakanov, and then they pulled Walker to this card. So let's be honest here. The UFC wanted Zhang to win this fight. That's why they made this card. This is why they're trying to build up and comers in the division, and Zhang ends up losing here. So to me, the stock drop is big just for the simple fact that had he won, he would have been really far ahead in his career. I don't, he's got lots of time. He's 27 years old. He can certainly turn things around, but I think this was a huge missed opportunity here for Zhang, losing to Johnny Walker in this spot, and not to mention the fact he was a fairly decent favorite in this fight, coming in at -370. You got to win those fights. Zhang is the first biggest stock dropper. Second biggest stock dropper, a couple different ways you could go with this one, but I'm going to go with Brian Ortega. Now, look, people will be like, well, the odds were off. Ortega was +390. The reason the odds went up so high is because Brian Ortega had a terrible weight cut. There was talks of this fight potentially not happening because of Ortega not getting it done. They end up fighting at a 153-pound catchweight. Like, let's go back a couple fights ago, even a couple of years ago, where Brian Ortega was. This was a guy that it was, this close to submitting Alex Volkanovski in their title fight back in 2021. And since then, it has not gone according to plan. Had the injury against Rodriguez, does get the win over him. Had the fight with Diego Lopez, where again, there was, didn't look very good in that one. And the Aljamain Sterling fight, I mean, look for the stats. Look at the stats themselves. Aljamain Sterling completely dominated Brian Ortega in this fight. 124 significant strikes compared to just 55. Ortega wasn't in this at all. Sterling almost finished this fight too. Sterling's not much of a finisher. I mean, where do you go if you're Brian Ortega here? First, I mean, he's got to go to lightweight. That's an absolute thing. But at 34 years old, you're moving to lightweight, and you haven't had a good quality win in a while. It's tough to see where Ortega goes from here. I just look at where he was and where Ortega is now. His stock has dropped a lot. Would have no issues if you wanted to say he was the biggest stock dropper on this card, but I don't think, again, they made an entire card to revolve around Zhang, so that's why he gets the biggest stock drop, and not to mention Ortega was an underdog here. So Ortega, second biggest stock dropper on this card. And third biggest stock dropper on this card, kind of obvious here, it's Michel Pereira. You're fighting Kyle Daukaus, someone that has been finished in the first round before. You're really explosive. You're still only 31 years old. I keep forgetting he's that young. And you get finished like this. He's got 3 losses in a row now. The Hernandez fight, whatever. We know Hernandez is amazing. He's a contender in the weight class. Abus would have liked to seen a little bit of a better performance, but now you're getting finished in the first round by Kyle Daukaus. Really bad look. This was a spot where a lot of people had Michel Pereira winning in the first round, and he doesn't get it done. You can say he got caught or whatever, but I just think the reality is this was a situation he did not take advantage of. And not to mention, big favorite going into this fight. He was a -235 favorite going into this one, and he couldn't get it done. Michel Pereira, another stock dropper here, and another one that maybe could get in most people's top 3s, but Loner Kavanagh's got to be on this list too. Undefeated, fighting in China. Again, a lot of promise, a lot of hype. A lot of people were on Loner Kavanagh in this fight, and he ends up losing here. And listen, I don't think he fought bad, but again, Charles Johnson. This is a fight that, had he won, kind of like Zhang, if he would have won this fight, he's definitely going on to bigger and better things. And to me, it was a missed opportunity here for Kavanagh, not getting it done. Credit to Charles Johnson for getting the win here. But yeah, Loner Kavanagh getting an honorable mention, but wouldn't have an issue if you wanted to put Kavanagh on the top 3. I put Pereira ahead because this was a guy that at one point was ranked at middleweight and doesn't get it done. So like I usually say on the stock report here, guys, let me know in the comments what your 3 biggest stock risers are and what your 3 biggest stock droppers are. This is just a video I do for fun. There's no right or wrong answers. Some people take this way too serious, and they're like, how on earth did you put this person as a stock riser, stock dropper? It's just my opinion, and I kind of back it up with the context that I explain in all my decisions. So there you go. So yeah, just let me know in the comments. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. This is the Stock Report. I'll see you for the next event. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.